UK inflation jumped sharply in the year to January, driven by rising food prices, airfares, and an increase in private school fees. The higher-than-expected jump to 3% from 2.5% in December means prices rose at the fastest pace for 10 months. Food staples such as meat, eggs, butter and cereals were all more expensive than a year ago and comes as many households prepare for higher energy and water bills later this year. Following the latest figures, the government warned that the road back to low inflation would be bumpy, but the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats argued Labour's tax rises and spending plans had caused the latest spike. Rising food prices last month mean, on average, the cost of buying groceries is 3% more expensive than it was a year ago. While many staples have edged up in price, some items such as olive oil and lamb have increased markedly, by 17% and 16% respectively. The rise in inflation, which is a measure used to give a general picture of how living costs have changed over a year, comes ahead of predicted increases to energy bills in April. Water and council tax bills are also slated to rise in 2 months' time, which will push up the cost of living for households. The government has raised the minimum wage for all age groups from April. Benefits and the state pension will also increase. But some businesses have warned that higher pay, as well as a rise in national insurance, will mean increased prices for customers as companies attempt to cover increased costs. Life is a struggle, said Gabby Cowley. The young mum told the BBC that she could already barely make both ends meet, but food prices are now ridiculous, something that keeps her up at night. Food shopping has almost doubled from about 3 years ago, she said. We spend, maybe, a minimum of $90 a month now, and that doesn't include $20-30 topping up during the week with fruit, veg and milk. If there is more money going out than coming in, Ms. Cowley said she will sell her baby's old clothes just to make a little bit of money to do things. She hopes the rise in minimum wage will see her pay go up, although she thinks the struggle is far from over. As well as food, inflation was fueled last month by plane tickets. Airfares tend to rise into December and fall into January, but the drop was less than in previous years, according to the Office for National Statistics (ONS). It also said that private school fees grew by about 13% at the beginning of the year due to VAT being added from 1 January after the government removed the tax exemption. The sharper rise in inflation it had been expected to climb to 2.8% has also led to speculation over how the Bank of England will react in terms of interest rates. High inflation in recent years, peaking at 11.1% in October 2022, saw the bank raise interest rates, which pushed up the cost of loans, credit cards and mortgages. As price rises have eased, borrowing costs have fallen, and the bank decided to cut rates earlier this month to 4.5%. But with the rate remaining above the bank's 2% target, some economists suggest further cuts could be made at a slower pace. Professor Jonathan Haskell, a former member of the Bank of England's Interest Rate Setting Committee, told the BBC that policymakers could take no signal from the inflation spike and carry on cutting rates gradually or view it as a harbinger of more to come and change course. Grant Fitzner, chief economist at the ONS, said because the VAT charge on private schools came into effect last month, the impact on inflation was a one-off. But Sarah Coles, head of personal finance at Hargreaves Lansdown, said the threat of higher wage bills for supermarkets and producers meant there was every chance food price rises in January would not be the last. This is on top of rises in everything from water bills and council tax, which is why it has become known as Awful April, she said.
Microsoft has unveiled a new chip called Myrana 1 that it says will enable the creation of quantum computers able to solve meaningful, industrial-scale problems in years, not decades. It is the latest development in quantum computing tech, which uses principles of particle physics to create a new type of computer able to solve problems ordinary computers cannot. Creating quantum computers powerful enough to solve important real-world problems is very challenging, and some experts believe them to be decades away. Microsoft says this timetable can now be sped up because of the transformative progress it has made in developing the new chip involving a topological conductor, based on the new material it has produced. The firm believes its topoconductor has the potential to be as revolutionary as the semiconductor was in the history of computing. But experts have told the BBC more data is needed before the significance of the new research and its effect on quantum computing can be fully assessed. Jensen Huang, boss of the leading chip firm, NVIDIA, said in January he believed very useful quantum computing would come in 20 years. Chetan Nayak, a technical fellow of quantum hardware at Microsoft, said he believed the developments would shake up conventional thinking about the future of quantum computers. Many people have said that quantum computing, that is to say useful quantum computers, are decades away, he said. I think that this brings us into years rather than decades. Travis Humble, director of the Quantum Science Center of Oak Ridge National Laboratory in the U.S., said he agreed Microsoft would now be able to deliver prototypes faster but warned there remained work to do. The long-term goals for solving industrial applications on quantum computers will require scaling up these prototypes even further, he said. Quantum computing holds the promise of carrying out calculations that would take today's systems millions of years and could unlock discoveries in medicine, chemistry and many other fields. There are numerous important problems that classical computers, of the sort we use every day in our phones, and laptops and power most modern applications, cannot solve. But these are problems quantum machines might be able to rapidly crack, promising new discoveries by creating new medicines or designing better batteries. A host of technology firms, including the Silicon Valley giants, are currently engaged in a multi-billion-dollar race to develop a quantum computer powerful enough to solve these problems. Microsoft is approaching the problem differently to most of its rivals. Its path to building a quantum computer relied upon being able to create a topoconductor or topological conductor. It uses the newly developed material to create a new state of matter, a so-called topological state which isn't a gas, liquid or solid and, until relatively recently, had existed only in theory. Specifically, it relies on so-called Majorana particles, which themselves were previously considered theoretical work claiming that they had been discovered in 2018 had to be retracted. While rivals produced a steady stream of announcements, notably Google's Willow at the end of 2024, Microsoft seemed to be taking longer. Pursuing this approach was, in the company's own words, a high-risk, high-reward strategy, but one it now believes is going to pay off. In the same way that the invention of semiconductors made today's smartphones, computers and electronics possible, topoconductors and the new type of chip they enable offer a path to developing quantum system, Microsoft said. The biggest challenge of quantum computers relates to their fundamental building block, called a qubit, which is incredibly fast but also extremely difficult to control and prone to errors. The more qubits a chip has, the more capable it is. Microsoft says it has put 8 of its new topological qubits on its new chip, considerably less than the chips created by some of its rivals. However, it claims to have a path to scaling it up to 1 million qubits, which would create immense computing power. Professor Paul Stevenson of Surrey University said the research published by Microsoft was a significant step, but he felt it had tough challenges ahead. Until the next steps have been achieved, it is too soon to be anything more than cautiously optimistic, he said. Chris Waynun, professor of quantum programming at the University of Edinburgh, told the BBC he felt Microsoft's plans were credible. This is promising progress after more than a decade of challenges, and the next few years will see whether this exciting roadmap pans out, he said.
Kevin Spacey has responded to fellow actor Guy Pearce's allegation that the Oscar winner targeted him during the making of 1997 movie L.A. Confidential, telling the Australian to grow up, adding, "You are not a victim." It comes after Pearce, one of the stars of the recent BAFTA-winning film The Brutalist this week, expanded on his alleged experiences with the U.S. actor, having previously called him a handsy guy. In 2018, Spacey, whose career was brought to a halt by a string of allegations, admitted to being too handsy and pushing the boundaries in an interview last year with Piers Morgan, while saying he'd not done anything illegal. In 2023, the actor was found not guilty of all charges of sexual assault against 4 men between 2001 and 2013 after a trial in London. And in 2022, a U.S. court dismissed a sexual assault lawsuit against him. Pearce told The Hollywood Reporter that the Oscar winner targeted me, no question, during the making of the 1997 crime thriller L.A. Confidential. But I did that thing that you do where you brush it off and go, "Ah, that's nothing. Ah, no, that's nothing." And I did that for 5 months, he said. And, really, I was sort of scared of Kevin because he's quite an aggressive man. He's extremely charming and brilliant at what he does, really impressive, etc. He holds a room remarkably. But I was young and susceptible, and he targeted me, no question. Pearce revealed he had told his wife at the time that he felt safe on set when his co-star Simon Baker was present, because Spacey allegedly focused his attentions on him instead. He said the #MeToo movement, which saw allegations made against many men in Hollywood from 2017 onwards, had been a really incredible wake-up call for him. The actor said he broke down and sobbed, and couldn't stop after he saw the allegations against Spacey in the news headlines. I think it really dawned on me the impact that had occurred, and how I sort of brushed it off and how I had either shelved it or blocked it out or whatever. On Tuesday, Spacey responded directly to Pierce in a video posted on X, saying, "If I did something then that upset you, you could have reached out to me. We could have had that conversation. But instead, you've decided to speak to the press, who are now, of course, coming after me, because they would like to know what my response is to the things that you said. You really want to know what my response is? Grow up." Spacey claimed Pierce omitted to mention he had flown to Georgia a year after LA Confidential was made, just to spend time with me while he was filming another movie, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. I mean, did you tell the press that too? Or does that not fit into the victim narrative you have going? He added, "I apologize that I didn't get the message that you don't like spending time with me. Maybe there was another reason, I don't know, but that doesn't make any sense. That you would have just been leading me on, right? But here you are now on a mission, some 28 years later, after I've been through hell and back." Spacey concluded his message by saying he was happy to have a conversation with Pierce anytime, any place. "I've got nothing to hide," he said. "But guy, you need to grow up. You are not a victim." Pierce earlier told the U.S. publication he had raised Spacey's alleged behavior with him years later, and had had a couple of confrontations with Kevin that got ugly. His new strategy these days, he noted, was just try to be more honest about it now, and call it for what it is.